Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 8th February 2024, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Okay, before getting into the today's newspaper analysis, I have a update related to the GIAS Perspective Builder, which is the initiative of Ganesh IAS Academy. It is a series of lectures which is going to be conducted by certain experts in the field, subject matter experts, and it is going to be conducted at the second Saturday of every month, and it will be telecasted in live in YouTube and also at the Zoom meeting. The link as well as the ID as well as password for the Zoom meeting will be provided a week before the lecture series, the lecture or the event when it is going to be conducted. For any other update, please go and have a look into the other social media handles, the description for which has been given below in the description. Okay, first, this is what the update regards to the lecture series which is going to be conducted by Ganesh IAS Academy Sabo. Okay, let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. Mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slides. So have a look at it. Okay, let's get into the analysis of every article one by one. Why budget plans for the deep tech and the research funding matters. So the news is related to the importance of deep technologies and what is the importance for the research funding or the fund for the researchers. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the details of the news. First, we will look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news is related to general science. Similarly, under mains, it has been related to awareness in the field of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotech, biotech, and issues relating to IPR. So this is how the news has been related with examination. Okay, let's look into further details of the news. Okay, the finance minister has announced 1 lakh crore corpus to provide long-term, low-cost as well as zero-interest loans for research and development in India. A new scheme to strengthen the deep technology in the defense sector will also be implemented, but it will be implemented following the larger policy which is right now in the implementation stage. After some later period of this year, it will get a go ahead from the government and it will get implemented. So after the policy, what is the policy is about is it is the deep tech startups across all sectors, excluding the defense. So after this policy comes, the deep technologies for the defense sector schemes will also be implemented, and these two announcements are interlinked. So how they are interlinked, we will look into it. So importance of the deep technologies, they are advanced as well as disruptive technology, and many still are under development, and they have the potential to provide solutions as well as the transformative changes that is happening across the global countries. And the term is being used to describe the cutting edge research in nanotech, biotech, material science, quantum technology, data science, 3D computing, 3D printing, so on and so forth. And they can also play a lead role in the global complex challenges like climate changes, hunger, poverty, as well as the energy access, so on and so forth. So for these problems, this deep technology could act as a solution for it. And at the same time, the advanced capability in the deep tech will enhance the productivity as well as drive the economic growth, and at the same time it will be creating a new kind of jobs in an economy. So this is what the potential it holds for the global countries and also for the domestic countries. And India's hedge in high quality science as well as engineering manpower and then technology culture makes it a front runner in this technology. So these are all the strength which India has, which because of this kind of strength which India is already possessing, making India as the front runner in this technology. And India has the scope to develop this technology which can ensure early adaptation as well as share in the IPR, which in turn ensure the indigenous knowledge, and then it will make India a self-reliant in the deep technology. and it has benefits like in the case of spin-off technology, that is developing of the peripheral technologies which is related to the deep technologies, and then it will ensure manpower get trained or skilled up, and then entrepreneurship as well as technical expert in this field will also get bloomed in the economy. So this is what the advantage it holds for India and overall for the global countries. And in terms of building an ecosystem, see, over the years government has tried to incentivize research in some of these sectors which I have seen in the previous slide by setting up certain missions like national missions on transformative mobility and battery and national quantum mission. So this kind of mission have already been proposed or implemented by government of India to ensure the research in the respective sunrise field. The national deep tech startup policy, which is going to be implemented in the later part of this year, seeks to address specific challenges being faced by the startup industry, startup sector, and to provide them with the platform to compete as well as collaborate for the research as well as development. This policy is being made and is going to get implemented in the later period of this year. And some of the provision of the, what is the provision, the policy, the national deep tech startup policy will hold is, first and foremost, it will be creating an opportunity for long term funding. The funding requirement is the evergreen requirement for any startup or for the any research activity to get sustained. So this policy aims to overcome the funding challenges. Secondly, it aims to simplify the IPR regime. Because of certain rigid rules and regulations, the IPR pattern or the IPR regime in India is not getting taken off. So this policy is going to simplify the IPR regime, and at the same time it ensures tax incentives for the startups and then conducive regulatory framework rather than a Inspector Raj framework. It is going to make a conducive framework which in turn provides the ecosystem for this startup to bloom in the economy. And then development of standards as well as certification will also be made so that the products that has been delivered by the startups will be in the form will match the national as well as the international standards. So these are all the what to say, eagle eye, the overall provisions that has been made in the policy which is going to be implemented in this year. And at the same time, its main objective is to nurture the talents by nurturing the startups as well as entrepreneurship culture in the economy, and it will act as linkage between industry, research center as well as the educational institution. So these are all the major provisions the policy holds. So what is the challenges of funding? What is the challenges the funding for the research has been facing in an economy, in the Indian economy is, see, the key recommendation in the startup policy is to open the opportunities for the long term funding. And because most of the deep technology projects are time as well as the money intensive, which is being recognized by government of India itself. And for more than 2 decades, government stated objective is to allocate the 2% of GDP for the research as well as development activity. But this 2% of GDP for R&D investment hasn't been made by India for the past 2 decades. It has been stagnating around 0.6%. So the absolute, in terms of absolute spending, it has increased, but in terms of ratio to GDP, the absolute spending hasn't kept pace. That is the reason why it is hovering around less than 1% of GDP. And this is what the thing is, and we could be able to see the global average in terms of spending for the research and development is 1.8% of GDP. And going by the recent decision, the thinking of the government is to mobilize the private funding into the research and development activities. For example, the recently introduced National Research Foundation, what the foundation is made up of is about 70% of the 50,000 crores that is going to be allocated for the foundation will be coming from the private sectors only. So, and this is one part of the funding, and the another part of the funding is in the recent budget, the government is going to allocate 1 lakh crore through in the form of low cost loans to the startups as well as for the industries to conduct their research activities. So this is also one form of mobilizing the private investment into the R&D activities. So this is what the objective of the government is. And the 1 lakh crore rupees, from this perspective we should be looking into the 1 lakh crore rupees which is being allocated for the research and development activity in the interim budget. So this is what, as I said in the previous slide itself, the 1 lakh crore will be given as the loan for the private sectors who will be investing it in the R&D in their respective industries. And what the experts are saying is that the too much money is expected from the private sectors without the commensurate rise from the public sectors. But the government is banking heavily on this initiative, that is trying to mobilize the private funding into the R&D activities. So this is what the thing with regards to the allocation of fund for the R&D activities about. Okay, let's look into the data with regards to the allocation of budget for different departments R&D activities, where we could able to see that most of the department is hovering around minus only. So there has been a decline in the allocation of R&D fund for certain department. For certain departments, like in the case of CSIR, it has recorded 9.3% jump, and for the Department of Space, it has recorded a 4.5% of jump in terms of the R&D investment, and 4.43% for Department of Agri Research, and for the remaining others, and for the Department of Science and Technology, it's a 2% increase in the R&D activities, or the fund for the R&D activities, and for the remaining other department, it has reduced from the previous year. So this is for the data with regards to the allocation of fund for the R&D in the government department is about. So what are the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of the National Research Foundation which is being created recently, and we should also be aware of SERB, and then CSIR, as well as National Science Congress, and then the Science Award being given by the Government of India. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. $4,797 crores for the PRITHVI scheme to boost the atmospheric, polar as well as ocean research, says RIJIJU, the Minister for Earth Science. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the details of the news. First, we will look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news is related to important geophysical phenomenon such as earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone. And in the case of mains, it is related to India and world geography, which comes under GS paper 1 geography. So this is how the news has been related with examination. Okay, let's look into further details of the news. Rupees 4,797 crores has been allocated for the PRITHVI initiative to boost the research in ocean, atmosphere as well as polar science. The PRITHVI scheme is the umbrella scheme which consolidates or gathers the Minister of Earth Science different schemes, and which covers projects like, which covers schemes which deals with geography, the certain section of geography like atmosphere, hydrosphere, cryosphere, biosphere, geosphere, etc. till the time period is till 2026, and it will, with climate change and its adverse impact in the form of heavy rainfall, floods, rising sea level, depleting glaciers, cyclones of high intensity, prolonged dry spells, it is need to understand the global earth in the one form, not in the segregated form. So that is the reason why the PRITHVI scheme is being made, which tries to mobilize or consolidate all other the different schemes being implemented by the Ministry of Earth Science, which is directly or indirectly related to the earth. So the whole of earth approach is required to understand the earth as a system itself, which is very important to overcome the negative effect that has been raised by the recent climate change. And it is a continuing program. Earlier, research in all these areas, as I said, were being carried out under different subheads. As a result of which, because of the different subheads under the budget, and separate allocation of fund will be made for each subheads, which in turn leading to redundancy and duplication in terms of fund as well as efforts. So to overcome the redundancy, duplication and a certain bureaucratic red tapeism, this umbrella scheme which coordinates as well as collaborate different sub schemes have been made. But now through this initiative, the one important thing is going to happen is a fund which has been allocated under one subhead, if it is not being utilized, means then such unutilized fund can be transferred to other projects which is starving, other Ministry of Earth Science project or the other subheading project which is starving for the fund. Such kind of mobilization of the fund between the subheads can happen under the PRITHVI scheme. So this is what the major objective or the positives of the scheme is about. So some of the ongoing research like across, that is atmosphere, climate, research, modeling, observing, system and service, and then SMART, OSMART, which is ocean service modeling application resource technology, as well as polar science and cryosphere research, that is PASER, and then SAGE, seismology and geoscience, and then reach out, research, education, training, outreach. So these are all the various initiatives which has been implemented under different subheads will be mobilized under a common initiative called PRITHVI. So PRITHVI will open doors for international collaboration, and this is what the major positives of the scheme is about. On the deep ocean mission, which is also being implemented by Ministry of Earth Science, what it has said is that extensive survey and exploration for metals like cobalt, copper, nickel, manganese have been carried in Indian Ocean, and exploration along the southwestern and central ridges have identified potential location for carrying out the hydrothermal activities, zone suitable for the sulfide mineralization. So this is what the thing with regards to the deep ocean mission is about. Let's look into what are all the areas which we needed to be further aware of, that is apart from the news which we have seen in the previous slide. We should be aware of the objectives of the deep ocean mission, the ministry responsible for implementing it, and then Arctic as well as Antarctic mission of India, and then ISRO mission. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. India to exclude labor, green issues during WTO discussion. So recently, the developed countries are bringing non-trade issues under the garb of sustainability into the table of WTO discussions, which India completely ignores, and it stands in the decision of ignoring such kind of non-trade discussions. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into further details of the news. First, we will look into the relationship of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news is related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it is being related with important international institutions, agencies, fora, their structure as well as mandate, which comes under GS paper 2 IR. So this is how the news has been related with examination. Okay, let's look into the details of the news. Amid the rising environmental issues, a certain environmental related measures being implemented by the Western countries. For example, European Union has implemented the carbon tax and deforestation law, which could be hurting the exports from the developing countries. And India will be rejecting any work program or negotiations which is non-trade on which is a non-trade issues like environment, MSP, MSME, gender at the WTO discussions. And what experts are saying is that why the developed countries are bringing this non-trade issues into the WTO conference or the discussion is, see, the developed countries are pushing the non-trade issues into WTO's discussion because they wanted to reverse the trade deficit they are suffering from the developing countries. And secondly, through the WTO reforms, the developed countries wanted to realign the WTO's rules, regulations into their favors. So this is what the major blame that has been made by the developing countries on the developed countries. And India will maintain its stance that the labor as well as the environmental matters are the non-trade issues and they should not be discussed with the WTOs. And the trade barriers, that is, as we have seen in the as we have seen in the previous slide, the carbon tax as well as the deforestation laws, which is the environmental law being made on the exports and imports. Such kind of trade barriers should not be erected under the garb of sustainable development. This is what the stand of India is about. And there are other, what India is saying is that there are other multilateral organizations like United Nations where this kind of problems could be discussed. And the issues of European Union, that is the rolling out of the carbon tax, that is which is applicable to all countries, can't be discussed at the ministerial. This is also the stand of India. And the matter is being, what India is saying is that this matter should not be brought into WTO, but this matter is already been discussed between India and EU in the bilateral trade agreements. So such kind of negotiations could only happen only at the respective fora, which is mandatory for implementing such kind of initiatives, or in the bilateral meeting. This is what the stand is. Such act may not only violate WTO but also have systemic implication on the international law as the whole itself. This is what the India's viewpoint is about. So let's look into what does this WTO ministerial body is about. It is the highest decision making body of the WTO, and under this the governance structure is being set up by the agreement established under WTO, and it will be usually meeting every 2 years, and all the members of the WTO members will be taking part, will take part in the discussion, and the final decision will be based on the consensus, and they can take decisions on all matters covered only under the trade agreements under which the WTO has been formed. So this is what the details of the ministerial conference is about. Let's look into further details of the news. It's not further details. What are the things which we needed to be further aware of? First, we should be aware of what is the carbon tax being implemented in India. Secondly, we should also be aware of the structure, function, as well as the members of United Nations General Assembly as well as Security Council, and then climate change. And most importantly, we should be aware of United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this, we have reached the end of this topic. Picking election commissioners. So Supreme Court has passed a judgment to pick the election commissioners based on the committee which comprises of ministers, union ministers, prime ministers, as well as the leader of opposition party. So based on this, the first time the election commissioner who is the present election commissioner is going to retire on the coming February 14th. So the new commissioner is going to get elected through this new committee system. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the relation of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news is related to Indian polity, governance, constitution. Similarly, under mains, it has been related to GS paper 2 under subtopic called appointments to various constitutional posts, powers, function, and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. So this is how the news has been related with examination. The election commissioner is set to retire on the present election commissioner. On February 14, the new election commissioner is going to be picked for the first time by the consultative process. That is the process being devised by Supreme Court. This selection will be made by a committee, as I said, comprised of Prime Minister, leader of opposition, as well as a union minister. A similar appointment, a similar consultative process based appointment have been made recently for the appointment of the Lokpal as well as Central Vigilance Commissioner. Before this, election commissioners were appointed at the discretion of executives only, that is the government. So what prompted the changes? See, Supreme Court's decision is the Supreme Court's decision to make a change in the election commissioner's appointment process. And why Supreme Court has made such a decision is, see, 4 petitions were filed before the apex court in the 15, 17, 21, 22 time period, which called for fair as well as transparency in the election commissioner's appointment. So based on the 2018 based on the 2015 petition, which was taken up by Supreme Court in 2018. A two-judge bench of the Supreme Court referred the case to the five-judge constitutional benches, because this Article 324 is going to be interpreted for the first time. That is the reason why the two-judge bench, which has taken up the 2015 petition, has referred the matter to the constitutional bench. In 2022, the five-judge bench led by K.M. Joseph has started hearing the petition, and what the petition has said is that, see, the Article 324 subclause 2 specifies the president's role in appointing the election commission, which is subjected to the law made by the parliament, but this law hasn't been made by the previous governments, so which is leading to excess authority for the executives to appoint the election commissioner. So based on this petition, Supreme Court has concluded that the current appointment system is opaque, so they called for consultative process in which the collegium or the board committee will be made, which comprises of members like Prime Minister, Union Minister, as well as leader of opposition party. So they will have the responsibility to select the election commissioner of India. So this is what the thing with regards to the litigation process is about, based on which the current consultative process have been devised. So the election commission, how the election commissioners have been appointed previously is, see, the power to make the appointment, as I said, rested solely on the executives. So the government maintain the how the process will be starting is, in the government will be maintaining the database of the serving officers or the retired officers in the rank of Chief Secretary to the state or the Secretary to the Government of India, and this database will be maintained by Law Ministry, who will be shortlisting a certain members to the executive's decision. So the Prime Minister holds the power to decide the appointment, and the President will be formally appointing the chosen candidate. So this is how the process for the election commissioners appointment will be going, was going in the previous years. And the center stand, what center argued in the litigation is, central government has opposed the Supreme Court's intervention. What central government has said is that, see, the appointment is subject to the law made by the parliament. So without such a law, the president has the constitutional power to appoint the election commissioner. So this is what the law is saying. So based on it only, the executives, that is the president appointment of the election commissioner has been happening, and the existing model is consistently being relied by different governments, not only this government, and the utopian model can't be premise for making change in the appointment of election commissioners in India. And what the center also said is that the petitioners were unable to demonstrate that the independence of election commission is compromised. So based on this argument, the government has argued against the petitioners. So the Supreme Court ruling, what it has said is that the court observed that the founding father of the constitution doesn't want the sole hand of the executives in appointing the election commissioners. That is the reason why they have included a word called subject to any law to be made by the parliament. So they wanted to involve the parliament to legislate a law, that is, they wanted to involve legislature into the appointment of the election commissioners. So the absence of such law has made a vacuum, which led to Supreme Court to step in. So as a result of which, they have devised a committee, as I said. The committee will be forming, deciding or picking up the members for the election commissioner. And Supreme Court also said that this committee will also be subjected to law made by this consultative committee will be subject to law made by parliament. It is not the sole, the committee is not the sole authority. They will be subjected to any law being made by the parliament with regards to the appointment of election commissioners. So okay, let's look into this. This is the first time the consultative process is made. No. A similar proposal was made in 1990s by Dinesh Goswami committee, which is the committee being appointed for the electoral reforms in India. And the committee has recommended that the president need to consult the Chief Justice of India as well as the leader of opposition for the Chief Election Commissioner appointment. And for the other election commissioner, the president need to consult the Chief Justice of India, leader of opposition, as well as the Chief Election Commissioner himself. So this is for the plan of the committee being devised by Dinesh Goswami committee during 1990s. During 2050, the 20th Law Commission report, the 20th Law Commission's 255th report, what is it has said is that there is a need for consultative process in appointment of the judges. Appointment of election commissioners in India. And it suggests the presidents need to make appointment after consulting the 3 members of the collegium of the selection committee, and which the 3 members are Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition, as well as Chief Justice of India. So these 3 need to be the member of the collegium or the selection committee. This is what the recommendation made by the Law Commission during 2015. And what has happened after the Supreme Court judgment is, the center has introduced a bill in the parliament. What it has said is that, see, the 5 candidates will be shortlisted and given to the committee by the law ministry as well as the 2 secretaries. And after the five members, those who have been shortlisted from the database, being handed over to the committee, it is the committee's authority to decide from this 5 who will be the member, who will be election commissioner of India. But this is what the law that has been made by the parliament, and it has been signed by the president in December 23. But what the criticism has been made is that the committee will be comprising of Prime Minister, Union Home Minister, as well as leader of opposition party. But what the criticism or the concern has been raised is that Prime Minister as well as Home Minister can outvote the leader of opposition party in the consultative process. So this is what the concern that has been raised with regards to the law that has been passed recently in the parliament after the Supreme Court judgment for formation of the consultative process. So this is what the thing that has been happened after the Supreme Court judgment. So what are the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of the elections, how the elections is conducted in India, what are the constitutional provisions, statutory provisions being available for conducting the elections in India. Secondly, we should also be aware of CVC, local, its structure, function as well as mandate, and we should be aware of local body election and as well as the state election commissions. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Hamas ceasefire plan. What are all the 3 stages it proposes? So recently Hamas has proposed a 3-stage plan for the ceasefire. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the details of the news. First, we will look into the linkage of the news with the syllabus. Under prelims, the news is related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it is related to effects of policies and politics of developed and developing countries, of India's interest and India's diaspora, which comes under GS paper 2, international relations. This is how the news has been related with examination. So Hamas has proposed 3-stage plan to halt its ongoing conflict with Israel. The plan envisages 3 truce period. Each period will have 45 days as a halt in the war. And what Saudi Arabia has said is that, and this plan has been accepted by Qatar, Egypt, who are mediating the peace process, as well as the Israel and US, who are involved in the peace process as the main stakeholder. And the Saudi Arabia, as it has said in the recent announcement of the press release, is that it won't normalize ties with Israel unless independent Palestinian state is being formed based on the 1967 border. What the proposal is in the phase 1. So Hamas has proposed 3 phases. In the first phase, Israel women hostage, boys under 18 as well as sick and elderly will be released, and in exchange Palestinian women and children in the Israel jail need to be released. and Israel will have to withdraw its military for in the populated area. In phase 2, the other male hostages will be released and Israeli troops will withdraw from the Gaza, and in phase 3, bodies and mortal remains of those killed on both sides will be exchanged. And what Hamas has said is that in this 135 days, that is the 3 phase of the ceasefire, an agreement will be worked out to end the war. But the Israel's decisions with regards to the plan that has been raised by the Hamas hasn't been made yet. Why it is that? So from the phase or the phase wise ceasefire which has been announced by the Hamas, you could be able to see that if the ceasefire is going to be conducted peacefully, means then the entire Gaza will be coming under Hamas itself, which the Israel will not be liking. So the Israel's response with regards to the ceasefire plan hasn't been announced yet, but they have their authorities, that is the Israeli authorities, have made certain negative things, or they have made certain dissatisfaction with regards to the Hamas ceasefire plan, and also US also made a dissatisfaction. US also currently been dissatisfied with the Hamas peace plan. So these are all the other area. This is what the Israel's reaction until now. So what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of the Middle East map, as well as the India's energy sector, as well as the Houthi attack which has happened in the Red Sea. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Okay, let's look into today's practice prelims question. Mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. So those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. With this, we have reached the end of today's session. Please do like, comment, share, as well as subscribe Ganesh IAS YouTube channel, so that you will be receiving daily current affairs session, as well as weekly environmental as well as science and tech related current affairs session through notification in the YouTube. So thank you.